It started quietly, the way most tragedies in relationships do, not with a loud crash or a sudden betrayal, but with the small, almost invisible cracks that spread slowly over time. Daniel had always thought of himself as a steady man. He wasn't flashy, he wasn't reckless, and he didn't need the constant adrenaline rush of chasing big dreams. He liked the comfort of knowing where his money went, the peace of having a safe home, and the warmth of a wife who for years he believed loved him in the same patient way he loved her. Daniel had been married to Clara for more than a decade. They had built a life together from nothing. At least that's how he remembered it. When they first got married, Daniel was just starting out at his job in logistics. He wasn't rich, and he certainly wasn't the kind of man who could dazzle anyone with wealth. But he was hardworking, and he took pride in being dependable. Clara, at that time, had admired that quality in him. She often said she didn't care about money or material possessions as long as they had love and honesty. Daniel believed her because when you're young and in love, you want to believe that shared values are enough to last a lifetime. For years, Daniel worked overtime shifts, saved diligently, and built a financial cushion. He wasn't stingy, but he was careful. He made sure Clara had what she needed: vacations when they could afford them, nice dinners on special occasions, little surprises like flowers on her birthday. He thought he was balancing practicality with romance in the right way, and for the most part, Clara seemed content. She would smile when he told her about how much they were saving for the future, how the retirement fund was growing, how one day they might buy a small cottage near the lake they loved to visit. She nodded, agreed, and played the part of the supportive wife, but people change. Or maybe people reveal who they truly are over time. Daniel wasn't sure which one it was when, many years later, he began to notice strange little inconsistencies. At first it was small: a missing receipt, a bank statement with a withdrawal he didn't remember authorizing, a vague explanation about a purchase Clara claimed she made for the house but he never saw. He brushed it off. Everyone makes mistakes, he thought. Sometimes things slip through the cracks. He told himself that being suspicious would only poison the trust between them. And for Daniel, trust was sacred. Months passed, then a year. The inconsistencies grew harder to ignore. Clara had always handled some of their joint accounts, especially the ones tied to household expenses. She said it was easier that way since she liked to do the grocery shopping and pay the utilities directly. Daniel didn't mind. He had full faith in her. But now, looking closely, he began to see that the numbers didn't always line up. A few $100s missing here, another withdrawal there, always explained away with something ordinary: new curtains, a repair bill, a favor for her sister. Each explanation seemed plausible, even if the pattern gnawed at him. The turning point came one evening when Daniel stayed late at the office. He had left his laptop at home, and Clara, not realizing he was standing behind her, was sitting at the kitchen table with her phone angled carefully away from sight. Her posture was tense, her face illuminated by the screen's glow, and then he heard a soft giggle escape her lips. Light, playful, the kind of sound he hadn't heard from her in years. It wasn't the laugh of a woman browsing harmless messages. It was intimate. It was meant for someone else. He didn't confront her then. Daniel was not the type to explode in rage or demand instant explanations. He believed in patience, in letting facts speak louder than emotion. That night he simply pretended he hadn't noticed. He made them both a cup of tea, sat across the table, and asked her about her day. She smiled a little too brightly and avoided his eyes. That was the moment Daniel knew something deeper was wrong. From then on, he began to watch more closely. Slowly, carefully, without giving away his suspicions, he combed through the financial records he had access to. Clara had been draining small amounts from their savings over the years, shifting money into accounts he didn't recognize. She had been clever about it, never enough to cause alarm at once, but steadily, like a leak that weakens the foundation of a house. The more he investigated, the more he uncovered. And then, finally, the truth surfaced. The money wasn't just disappearing into thin air. It was being funneled into supporting another man. Daniel's chest tightened the night he saw the transfer to a hotel chain in the city where Clara claimed to be visiting. Her cousin. The hotel bill, the dinners, the shopping, it wasn't random. It was deliberate. She had a lover. And worse, she was financing him with Daniel's own hard-earned money. At first, Daniel felt something he hadn't expected, not rage, but a profound sadness. The betrayal wasn't only in her infidelity, it was in the years of deception, the way she had looked him in the eye and pretended everything was normal. He thought back to all the sacrifices he had made, the nights he had stayed up working so she could have comfort, the dreams he had deferred so they could save for the future. And here she was, feeding those sacrifices into someone else's hands. He thought about confronting her immediately, laying out the evidence and demanding the truth. But something inside him resisted. What would that achieve? She would deny it, cry, spin more lies, or she might confess and beg forgiveness. But what then? Could he forgive something so deep, so calculated? Daniel knew himself well enough to realize he couldn't. Trust, once broken in this way, was gone forever. So instead of rushing to act, he decided on something else. A different kind of response. Not shouting, not violence, not reckless revenge. Something calmer, sharper, and more enduring. If Clara thought she could live a double life undetected, Daniel would show her just how thoroughly he could outthink her. He would not only expose her betrayal, but make sure she faced the consequences of every secret she thought she had hidden. For weeks, Daniel planned in silence. He gathered evidence carefully, screenshots of transactions, copies of messages he retrieved from their shared cloud storage, photos of hotel receipts. He even began discreetly tracking her movements, not in a way that would make her suspicious, but enough to confirm his suspicions with undeniable proof. Every lie she told he matched with a fact. Every excuse she gave he countered with a record. And yet, he carried himself at home as if nothing had changed. He still made her tea in the evenings. Still asked about her day. Still offered the quiet companionship she had long ago stopped appreciating. Clara didn't know that every word she spoke was being weighed, every smile she forced was being catalogued. She thought she was safe, that her secrets were locked away. Daniel let her believe that. He wanted her to, because when the time came, the weight of his silence would make the reveal all the more devastating. Part of him still wondered why. Why had she done it? Was he too boring, too predictable? Had she grown restless with the life they built? Or had she simply found someone who offered her something Daniel never could? Those questions haunted him, but he didn't dwell on them too long. Motives mattered less than actions. And Clara's actions had cut so deep that the reasons no longer softened the wound. As the days turned into weeks, Daniel began to design his trap. It wouldn't be loud or messy. It wouldn't end with him storming into a hotel room or shouting across a dinner table. No, his plan would be calm, precise, and unforgettable. Clara and her lover would have no room to deny, no space to twist the story. Daniel would reveal the truth at the moment it would sting the most, and he would do it with the quiet dignity of a man who refused to be made a fool any longer. And so, he waited. He watched. He prepared. What Clara didn't realize was that every step she took deeper into her secret life only tightened the snare around her. She thought she was clever, that she could hide her tracks. But Daniel was patient, and patience has a way of turning betrayal into a weapon sharper than anger ever could. The quiet part of Daniel's plan was the hardest. Living alongside Clara each day, pretending that nothing had changed, was a kind of test of endurance. He had to smile when she smiled, nod when she spoke, and hold conversations that felt hollow to him, but normal to her. On the surface, it looked like their marriage was continuing as usual, but underneath, Daniel was storing every fragment of truth, every detail she thought she had hidden. He started by moving their savings into more secure accounts, ones she no longer had access to. Slowly, quietly, without ever drawing attention. He didn't want her to notice. He let her keep believing she had full control of the finances she had been draining. In reality, Daniel had shifted the bulk of their money into a place only he could touch. If she thought she was winning, if she thought her deception was still yielding rewards, that illusion kept her careless, and Clara was careless. The longer she felt secure in her double life, the bolder she became. Daniel noticed she stayed out late more often, with excuses that barely held up under the simplest logic. She claimed to be visiting her sister, but her sister let slip during a family dinner that they hadn't seen each other in weeks. Clara claimed to be shopping with friends, but the receipts told a different story. Meals for two at restaurants Daniel had never visited with her. She thought she was clever, but she was really painting herself into a corner. Daniel had already confirmed the existence of the other man. His name was Matthew. Younger, unemployed for long stretches, charming in a shallow way. Daniel had no interest in him beyond what was necessary. To Daniel, Matthew was less a rival than a parasite, feeding on what Daniel had built, thriving on Clara's betrayal. The money, transfers, the hotel bookings, even the little gifts Clara bought weren't for her enjoyment, they were for him. The savings Daniel had built through years of sacrifice were being funneled into keeping Matthew comfortable. It might have broken another man. But Daniel's sadness had hardened into something else. Not bitterness, not rage, something steadier. Resolve. He didn't want to scream. He didn't want revenge that left him looking like the unstable one. He wanted clarity, exposure, the truth brought into the light in such a way that Clara couldn't wriggle free of it, and Matthew couldn't pretend to be innocent. Daniel wanted them both to see that their quiet betrayal hadn't gone unnoticed, that he had seen everything, and that their little world of secrecy would collapse in a single moment. So he planned. He chose the stage carefully. Confrontations at home can be denied, twisted later into misunderstandings. Confrontations in private often fade into he said, she said disputes. No, this moment had to be public. It had to be undeniable. And it had to occur at a time when Clara believed she was untouchable, safe and secure in her lies. The opportunity came in the form of Clara's birthday. She had been hinting for weeks about wanting a dinner party, something small but elegant. She suggested inviting close friends, her sister, and a few of Daniel's colleagues. It was the perfect stage. Daniel encouraged the idea, nodded in agreement, even offered to handle the reservations. He smiled as if he were still the doting husband, eager to make her happy. Inside, he was already setting the trap. On the day of the dinner, Daniel made sure everything was arranged perfectly. The restaurant was upscale but intimate, a place where Clara could preen in front of her friends. She dressed beautifully that night, her smile wide and confident. Daniel couldn't help but notice the necklace around her neck, new, expensive, not something he had ever bought her. He didn't mention it. He didn't need to. Soon enough, she would have to explain it herself. The evening began smoothly. Friends toasted to Clara, laughter filled the table, and Clara basked in the attention. Daniel played his part flawlessly, raising his glass, complimenting her, keeping the atmosphere light. No one suspected the storm quietly waiting beneath the surface. When the main course was served, Daniel stood. His voice was calm, measured, the way it always was. He thanked everyone for coming, expressed his appreciation for their friendship, and spoke warmly of Clara. She beamed, glowing under the praise. And then, with the same steady tone, he shifted. He told them he had prepared something special for Clara that evening. Not a gift in the traditional sense, but something more personal, a reflection of their years together. He pulled out a folder he had brought with him and laid it gently on the table. Clara's smile faltered just slightly. Daniel continued, explaining that inside were the many surprises he had discovered over the past months, the transfers, the hotel receipts, the messages. His voice never rose. He spoke as though he were recounting facts at a business meeting, not exposing betrayal in front of friends. The room grew silent. Fawkes paused mid-air. Clara's face drained of color. She reached for the folder, but Daniel stopped her with a hand, keeping it just out of reach. "No," he said softly. "This isn't just for you. This is for everyone to see. Because for years I believed in honesty. I believed in loyalty. And I want the truth to live in the open, not in the shadows where you've kept it." Clara stammered, tried to explain, but the evidence was undeniable. The receipts, the screenshots, the clear trail of money flowing out of their accounts and into Matthew's life. The necklace she wore was among the listed purchases, every detail lined up with precision. Friends exchanged shocked glances. Her sister covered her mouth in disbelief. And then, as though summoned by fate itself, Matthew walked in. Clara had been careless enough to arrange to meet him later that night, thinking Daniel would never know. But Daniel knew. He had invited Matthew himself, under the guise of Clara's request. And now here he was, stepping into the restaurant at the exact moment the evidence lay spread out on the table. The silence deepened. Clara's eyes widened in horror. Matthew froze, realizing too late that he had walked into a trap. Daniel turned to him, calm as ever, and said, "You've been living off me for years. Tonight that ends." There was no shouting, no physical confrontation, just a heavy, suffocating silence as everyone present saw the truth unfold before them. Clara tried to speak, but no words came. Matthew backed away, muttering something about leaving, but the damage was already done. The facade was shattered. Daniel didn't linger. He gathered the folder, placed it back in his bag, and looked once more at Clara. His voice was quiet, steady, final. "I gave you loyalty. You gave me lies. Tonight, we're finished." With that, he left the restaurant. The whispers rose behind him, the sound of Clara's humiliation echoing through the room. He didn't need to look back. He knew the consequences of that night would follow her long after he was gone. In the days that followed, Daniel filed for divorce. With the evidence he had collected, the financial misconduct was undeniable. Clara's credibility crumbled in court, and Matthew disappeared as quickly as he had appeared, unwilling to face the mess he had helped create. Daniel reclaimed the savings he had secured, ensuring his future remained intact. It wasn't the life he had envisioned. There was no cottage by the lake, no peaceful retirement with the woman he once loved. But there was peace of another kind, the peace of knowing he had not been made a fool, the peace of ending things on his own terms. Daniel moved forward, quietly, steadily, just as he always had. He didn't boast about his revenge, didn't retell the story with relish. He simply carried the knowledge that when betrayal came, he had answered it not with rage, but with calm clarity. And in that he found a dignity that could never be taken from him. And that is the story of Daniel, a man who turned betrayal into strength and silence into the sharpest form of justice. If you enjoyed this story, and you'd like to hear more tales of calm revenge, true or inspired by real life, make sure to like this video, share it with someone who might appreciate it, and subscribe to the channel. That way you'll never miss the next story. Don't forget to hit the bell icon so you never miss an update by our channel My Calm Revenge.